Hi, we're going to get started. I'm the unofficial we're going to get started person. My name is Lisa Cohen, and I'm just here butting in for 30 seconds to tell you that I'm the director of the DuPont Columbia Awards at Columbia University, which is the audio-video counterpart to Columbia's Pulitzer Prizes. I have a visual aid, which you'll see around, and I'm here to talk about DuPont Awards just to tell you that our submission deadline is coming up July 1, and I would encourage you all to find me if you have any questions at all. I'll be around till the end of the conference. And also, I'm so excited because this is my first panel with one of my former students on it. So I'm very, very proud.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, hey everyone, I'm Mike Beaudet. We are here to talk about vertical video and why you need to be in the game if you want people to see the hard-hitting investigations that you have worked so hard on. We have a QR code that we're going to put up on the screen that you can follow along with our slides. We've also got all our contact information there. And we also have a link to our Northeastern University research website. I work at WCVB in Boston as an investigative reporter, but I also work as a journalism professor at Northeastern, and my research there focuses on the future of video news storytelling. We recently published a survival guide for local TV news that you can find the link to, and including our most recent paper that we published with the Kennedy School at Harvard. I'm so excited to be working with these two vertical video rock stars. I've already learned so much from them as we've been preparing for this, so I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for coming to a later panel. My name is Anastasia Olmos. Many of you know me as Stassi. I work right now at Atlanta News First Investigates with Gray Media.
And my name is Levi Ismail. I'm an investigative reporter for News Channel 5 in Nashville, and I'm so excited to see all of these different faces, people who I've ran into over the course of just the past day or so, asked questions and everything in between, and I said, hey, you know, there's a whole panel on this stuff right now, so I hope those folks are in the room because this stuff that we're going to be talking about is pretty exciting.
Thank you both. We want to just give you a quick overview of what we're going to be hitting on today. We're going to be talking about who's watching the vertical videos and why vertical videos are important. We're really going to dissect the anatomy of a good vertical video. We're going to be doing some show and tell throughout the presentation. We're going to be talking about your voice, your brand, and why that's so important. And the question that everyone always asks all of us about, monetization. How do you make money? How do stations make money? How do creators make money? We're going to be talking about all of that. As part of our research at Northeastern, we placed digital content creators in newsrooms for a year of experimentation on digital platforms. We also did a nationwide survey of 18 to 34-year-olds, more than 1,000 people, and we have some takeaways. This slide really says it all. Social media is a habit, TV is not, and if you take a look at the top daily news sources for this age group, YouTube is number one, Instagram, TikTok, and when you look at local TV news, it really falls down on that list. So if that doesn't convince you that you should be in the game, maybe this next slide will. You put all this work into your investigation, right? And you think, well, why do I want to create a minute vertical video or a 2-minute vertical video? But our research also found that that younger age group, if they're interested in the topic, they're going and seeking out new information. So they may actually come across that 10-minute investigation that you put together. So it's really an important part of the media ecosystem. And then finally, one more research tidbit that I want to share with you, and that's just what you could potentially use as a topic for your vertical video. And we found that audiences really want to know how you did it. They want to see all that behind the scenes work that you put into your investigation, all the records that you requested, all the data that you analyzed. And this stuff can really be rich content for your vertical videos. So it's just something to think about as you're putting this into action. I know a lot of you already do this work, but as you continue to build on it, these are some ideas that you might have. All right, let's get to our experts. Levi, we're going to start with you. We're all storytellers, but telling a story on vertical video is obviously a little different. I'm wondering how you approached producing a vertical video.
You know, and for the TV folks in here, this may sound like, you know, pretty common sense stuff, but your anchor intro is how I start my video, right? Like, the anchor intro should get people interested in why am I going to stick around for the minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, or whatever that you've got going on. And so This is an anchor intro. It's just much shorter. It's 3 to 5 seconds. Why am I sticking around? Can you tell me what the story is and not necessarily just the tease of a story? Does that make sense? And so I know it sometimes sounds odd because we're talking about, well, building the story and building the arc for the story. People don't have the time. People are so quick to move on to the next thing, and usually we are on their phones. And guess what? A swipe takes a fraction of a second. And so for me to get your attention, I use all sorts of things, whether it's my hook. What am I going to say in the first 3 to 5 seconds to get you interested? Can I visualize it for you so that it's not always just what I say? Do I have a title on the screen so that you can put the words to the visuals and to what I'm saying? All of those things have to happen in the 3 to 5 seconds. It's intimidating sometimes, but when I put it in terms of like, hey, listen, this is your anchor intro. You do it every day. Like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because that's what gets people interested. On top of that, you need to be authentic, okay? This needs to feel like you are on a FaceTime with a friend. When you are sitting there doing a video and you are staring into the camera, there could be all sorts of things you're thinking about, and you get the 1,000-mile stare, and you're like, oh my God, there's 100,000 people watching me right now. That's not the case. You're talking to one person. Can you say the story and keep them interested as if you were sitting at a bar talking about whatever the investigation is? I know the journalists in this room could talk about any one of their stories for hours. Can you do that for a minute? 30 seconds, maybe? I think you can. The thing that I put there as far as matching eyes to ears, we kind of talked about that for a second here, but it's important. People are most likely going to watch without listening to you. They're going, how often, I see some people nodding their heads. How often are you watching a video? You could be watching one right now. I see you in the back. How often are you watching a video because it's on your Instagram or whatever, and the audio's not on? Can you convey the same message? Do you have the captions on there? Do you have the title on there? Can you convey the same message? And can you still be compelling even though you can't hear me? Right? One of my biggest pet peeves with all of this when it comes to the, just getting to the thing is when people tell a story, kind of like what I'm doing right now, actually. It's really important. What does that mean? Guys, this is an amazing story. You guys have no idea. It took me hours to come up with this thing, and now it's 3 seconds in, and I still don't know what we're talking about. Or we do guys, this was an amazing story. You should have seen what just happened behind me. By the way, I'm Levi Ismail with News Channel 5. Just so you know, you can see it on the screen. You know where I work. You can go to my page. It's there. It's okay. Talk to me like a human being, right? That's part of the being authentic. That's part of the just feeling like you're approachable at the end of the day. So if someone does walk up on you, they can say, love the story that you did, by the way. I've got a follow-up if you're interested. Cool?
Very cool.
So here's an example of that. And we're showing examples throughout this presentation. Stasi's going to have an example of her own as well as Mike. But this is an example of something that I shot just down the road from the station. And part of the reason why I think it works is because I'm taking you to the story. And hopefully this audio works.
Metro Nashville City Council just passed a resolution saying they are not in favor of this tunnel. So why is it still happening? The idea behind the Music City Loop is that they will start building on state property and build underneath state roads. So all they really have to answer to is the state. But we're standing in Nashville, and that's been part of the story, right? We had the Tennessee Chamber of Commerce coming out to say, hey, maybe you don't pass this resolution because, yeah, it's going to look like Nashville wants no part of this. This resolution doesn't necessarily stop any building from happening. It just means that they don't want to be a part of this project that is being built in our very own backyard. But I always go back to the question of, does Nashville have a say? I'm saying all this knowing that state lawmakers just came up with a new bill where they would have the authority to issue permits for these types of underground projects. And the board would be appointed by the speakers of both chambers and the governor, who are all Republicans. My colleague Chris Davis did the story, and he explained that Nashville would still have a say on the above ground stations, but if there's a decision that goes against continuing these projects, then it's appealed back to the state, where most likely they will have the final say. There were still some council members who said, okay, well, let's go forward with this project and see where it takes us, whereas you have other council members, Delisha Porterfield being one of them, who said, listen, we need to ask more questions here. We're still not getting answers from this company. A lot of you have said, just give me an opportunity to ask about this. Give me an opportunity to know if you're going to be digging underneath my property, like what my rights are. We want to know what the environmental impacts are. We want to know why every other city, with the exception of Las Vegas, has turned you down. And yet when you try to send the boring company an email, many of you have gotten responses that amounted to, we'll get back to you. So yeah, for a lot of folks, it's been frustrating, to go through this process and know that every other city has had a say in what happens before they turn down the boring company, only for the boring company to show up to Nashville and say, yeah, we're just going to do this anyway. Now, someone might say, what's the big deal, right? Because these guys say that they're willing to pay for this tunnel, which would mean no taxpayer involvement whatsoever. And who knows, this could be proof of concept. They could use this as an opportunity to show other states that you can get away with building a tunnel without having to worry about the city's involvement. Who knows? But I'm curious. What do you think?
Okay. So, like I said, there's the story and there's taking you to the story. And I figured, you know what, we're talking about a tunnel. I'm going to take my tripod, this guy here, and I'm just gonna put it over the fence. And I'm just gonna talk about this fence and this tunnel and explain the story and include my colleague Chris's amazing journalism in all this as well. But yeah, don't be afraid to tell the full report. I could just as well have said, we've got the full story on News Channel 5 and you could follow along or whatever. But don't be afraid to tell the full report. That's what people are looking for.
You are so good at talking. You're really good at that. So you're supposed to ask me a question.
That's okay, you go. All right, let me ask the question, which is, when you're out there, it'd be nice if we could just produce vertical videos, right? And actually, our research, we're pushing TV stations to hire people who are just producing content, but that's not how it works in the real world for you. You're out there shooting stories for linear TV and vertical at the same time. How do you do it? How do you balance it?
I mean, that's the question of so many reporters right now, is how do we do it all? I've heard the word quota in some of these sessions where reporters are given a quota for the week of how many vertical videos they need to post, not just make, but actually post in that week.
That's tough.
So every time you're out, you gotta think in vertical and horizontal. So, that's our medium. And I have a photographer who said, well, does this panel apply to me? Yeah, you could shoot me some vertical when we're out, all right? When you're out, you should always be thinking, let me just capture this. I'm looking into Waymos, driving down the street, and I pull over. Let me just get a little bit of horizontal video, a little bit of vertical. I haven't used any of my Waymo footage, but one day I'm going to, because, there's a story there. And so leveraging social media to meet your audience where they are. That's really what vertical video is about right now. We all want TV to survive, but we know that the industry is changing. That's why quotas are being placed on reporters, anchors, producers, the entire newsroom right now. It's up in the air how we're going to monetize and incentivize a lot of this, but right now what you can do is you can meet your audience on social. You can drive them to your platform. I always sell to my full investigation, which is going to be much longer than a minute, 2 minutes on social media, but I love putting so much in the article, and so that's where you want to send them. But where I'm going to meet them is on social media, and then they're going to give me their tips. They're going to message me on that platform. So you really got to leverage it. And as investigators, it is hard and scary to turn something that we've worked so hard on into 1 minute or 2 minutes. And so my advice to legal proof anything is to always give a mention to the other side and sell to the full thing. Sometimes if it's a story I'm kind of nervous about, I'm going to put it in the caption. So I'm going to say the response of whatever entity or lawmaker or whatever might be, so that I am legally protected on my social media platform, because at the end of the day, that's what your station cares about most, right? Is how much money are we going to get sued for?
And don't be afraid to share these videos with your managers, right? Like, I think we typically expect that's the package, like it's gonna go through the typical, the process of manager reviews it and all that kind of stuff, but I send my vertical videos that happen to involve investigations to my manager. She looks at it, she says, yeah, that's not gonna get us in trouble, or that part right there, can we please take it out? And yeah, it's a working relationship at the end of the day, so that you don't get sued. And even if you do get sued, there's help.
Let's do some more show and tell.
A Metro Atlanta animal control is under scrutiny for the way that they're putting animals down. Our investigation found that the Clayton County Animal Control veterinarian is using the heart stick euthanasia method nearly 90% of the time. That's supposed to be a last resort, not only according to the Georgia Department of Agriculture, but also Georgia law. Vets are supposed to go through a vein first, and if they can't, then the abdomen. A heart stick is the last choice. That's because it can be painful, so the law states that an animal must be unconscious. Now, the only way we know this is by reviewing drug logs through records request, as well as advocates that have been requesting internal surveillance cameras into the shelter. Their biggest concern is that animals are not unconscious when they're given the heart stick, and that they may be able to feel pain. Through our own records request with the state, we found that they did do a surprise inspection after all of these complaints, and they did in fact cite a violation for euthanasia in the Clayton County Animal Control Shelter. But then we found that they removed that violation within the same day. They have not told us why. The veterinarian in the report told the inspector that she uses this heart stick method because the way that she sedates them through this acupuncture point on the head lowers their blood pressure. Clayton County Animal Control is run by Clayton County Police, and the captain in charge tells us that they didn't receive a violation. He says it was an observational comment, adding that they've reviewed and adjusted procedures consistent with the Department of Agriculture guidance. And here's the most important part. Advocates were able to realize that this was going on by requesting drug logs, which the county is no longer providing, claiming that they're exempt under a personal privacy law. We're still waiting to hear back from the Department of Agriculture on why the violation was removed, but if you want to help right now, Clayton County Animal Control has dogs up for adoption. Click the link in my bio to find out more.
So first to start, compelling video. This was actually a 5-ish minute investigation. There's several parts to it, but just the first part, 5 minutes, I kind of just went, let me tell you the highlights, and it even felt like a lot, but I had the video that was compelling enough to lead me. And then I used screenshots, the documents that takes your viewer with you along your investigation. That's what we try to do with video, right? And so you see those documents behind me. I found the green screen, which we will also get into a little bit here, where I am there over the background. That tends to get a lot of attention. People like that kind of raw journalism, so I highly suggest you do one and see how your viewers respond. But the graphics, just show them what you're talking about. I put a couple arrows, a couple circles, a couple highlights using Premiere, and it works. Give viewers something they can do at the end of the video. I always sell to the web for more because I want you to see my full piece. That's also how your station is going to get some of those clicks, the advertisement, all of that. But I'm also telling them, if you're compelled through this story, you can do something right now. You can engage with this story. You can go adopt an animal. You can go to my link. We are still searching for answers. Stay with us. And then, I mean, this is actually staggering to me. My story didn't do that well as a web article. I put a lot into my web articles. I even explain that GV20 method that the vet is saying she uses to sedate the animals, and she never actually explains why that is, you know the story. But, it's just like she wouldn't do an interview. I put that in the caption. And then I tell people, go to the article. Click, I have this link here, recent investigations. You can tell 5,000 article views. I mean, I think it's a little bit less than that. But overall vertical video on YouTube Shorts, on Instagram, and on TikTok from my account and my station account, Atlanta News First, we got 740,000 views. That is where our viewer is now. We have to figure out how to reach them.
I want to ask you both about the length of those stories. So our national survey we did of that 18 to 34-year-old age group, we found that they like vertical videos around a minute long. Both of those stories were longer, right? So I'm wondering, based on the content that you've produced, where do you see the most engagement? Is it length or is it content that gets those hundreds of thousands of views?
You want to take it?
I'll give a quick answer.
Sure.
So as you know, there used to be a limit on how long you could go. Instagram was 1:30, YouTube Shorts, 60 seconds tops, and that was really nerve-wracking for an investigative reporter. Now you can go 3 minutes. And so if it's an investigation, if you look at the views, people want this content. What makes you different from the other person out there just roasting the animal control? Give the facts. I think people want to engage.
100%. I've had vertical videos that lasted longer than the TV story.
I told you, you can talk.
And listen, you put the story in front of me. We've been covering it for a month, 2 months, 6 months, a year or whatever. I'm going to talk. And so I have the microphone on me, and I might just sit there, okay, and talk through some of the challenges of the reporting, some of the things that we ran into, why it was so tough to get that one person to sit down and do an interview. At this point, I've put the story together on TV, and so I know it already. Like, I may not even have to write a script because it's here, okay? And so I'll sit there and talk through all of it. I'll leave the camera rolling for 30 minutes if I need to, okay? And I will boil it down to 3 or 4 minutes, if that's what it takes. Because right now, these platforms have gone past well, if it's good, you can make it a minute. Like, you can give us 30 seconds or whatever. Why should that matter? You catch yourself watching YouTube videos that are at least 10 minutes long. You don't bat an eye at it. Why? Because you just feel like it's a good story and you just sit there watching. Well, this is no different. We think that there's an expectation that it needs to be shorter to be better, but the reality is that if you give me a good story and I can follow along and it feels natural, you're not putting a timer on me. And the same way you wouldn't put a timer on a friend if you were hearing about the story at the bar or at a restaurant or whatever. Does that make sense? So yes, there is a sweet spot there of 1:30, but beyond that, like, don't take things out of your reporting just because you're trying to meet that 1:30. Add the context. The reason that you're in this room is because you're good at adding context. Why don't you do it on here?
Great advice, great advice. Stassi, I want to ask you, linear TV is all about the reporter package, but just posting a linear TV package on digital is not a good strategy. So what other formats are you having success with online?
So I think for our team, we might spend a couple weeks on a single investigation, which means you're going several weeks without posting something to your social media if you're not covering anything. So we do these things called SMS, subject matter specialist. HOA nightmares, as you may have seen the series out of our investigative unit, I'm a special subject matter specialist in HOAs. I don't own a home, but I understand them really well. And so when a law got passed as part of our, reporting, I jumped on and I did a social. Here are the things you need to know about this law. Here's when they go into effect and how they affect you. So explainers, what do people need to know? When you have any sort of emotional soundbite, that's going to grab the viewer in 3 to 5 seconds, make it a reel. This other video here where it says Metro Atlanta, as what you're looking right now is actual fecal matter in her backyard. Compelling video. This is a renter in Atlanta who is living in deplorable conditions. I made her entire reel her voice because her video and her sound is good enough to make a minute and a half reel sell to the web. I'm going to investigate this company and renters' rights laws in the state of Georgia. Strong images and video, you saw the fecal matter. And behind the scenes, so on the far right, we do another thing called Behind the Investigation, where we do little sit-down podcasts where they go on YouTube, they go everywhere. So what I started doing is bringing my tripod in and shooting it vertical and ripping the sound, putting it there. There was a story that I did where we saved a man's house. There was an issue with a disability payment glitch. He didn't get his paycheck in time for the mortgage to be paid. He got kicked out of a program, and they were going to foreclose on his house. We went, we did the story with him, we looked into what happened. He thanked us for listening to him. He didn't thank us for saving his house, he thanked us for listening to him. And for me, I was like, that is a behind the scenes story to me. The power of journalism in just listening, I made it into a reel. There are so many options of what you can do on social to engage with your community.
I want to open up the toolboxes, and I want to find out what you're using to create all this content and what advice you have for people. Maybe they're starting out, or maybe they've been doing it. How can they make what they're doing even more compelling?
Well, I brought all of the things that you see up there on the screen with me, and so I'm going to put them up here at some point or another, so you can always check it out or whatever. But bottom line is, guys, we need to step up our game. As far as creating this content, of course, you can sit in your car if you need to, or you can sit in the park if that's what's comfortable. I see people sitting in their kitchens, you know, recording some of this stuff, which is great, okay? But now these platforms, they understand. Everyone has access to a microphone. You can buy one, $15 on Amazon if necessary. Tripod, same deal, $15 on Amazon, okay? If you are not comfortable with using just the back camera on your phone where you can't see yourself, we've got the selfie mirror down there, okay? And that attaches to your phone. I know, I see some faces right now going, what in the hell is he talking about? I get it, guys. Like, this is the stuff that I thought was common sense at one point or another. I was like, well, yeah, I mean, we use all these tools on TV or to produce stuff for TV. Why wouldn't we do that for this, right? And so I got the mic, I got the tripod, I got the selfie thing or whatever, because I sometimes like to put the camera further away and I could step back and then see myself in the frame and make sure that I'm framed up, right? If you're doing this by yourself, this is the kind of stuff that you would expect. But yeah, these are, the other thing really quick, I'll just mention, down there, that clip where I'm shooting myself walking and talking in the park, that is one shot, that's a wide shot with my phone that I cropped in multiple times. So if you're wondering like, how am I gonna get all these different angles or whatever, that was one shot, right? The back camera is gonna be so much better than the front camera. If you take nothing away from this, the back camera is your friend, folks, okay? The selfie camera, that is not meant for the quality of what we expect for the folks who are in this room. You wanna do the work? Just use that, just thought.
Have you heard of the iPhone 17? It's good.
It's not an iPhone commercial, folks, okay? Just saying, like it.
Now, what about editing? What are you guys using?
Sure.
So you can see there on the bottom, that's actually Adobe Premiere. That is exactly how I edited the Clayton County Animal Control video that you saw. If it looks complicated, I'm sorry. I promise you, it is just pieces of the package put down into a minute and a half. And I actually meant to put a little screenshot up here, but your photographer, if you're an MMJ, you can do this in settings when you open the project. All you need to do is flip the dimensions. I'm going to ask my photographer for the right words, the dimensions, and it'll create that vertical for you. If you want to figure out how, I can give you exact instructions after this. But that's Premiere. It's easier for me to sit on my computer and edit these things faster, but you can see on the right, I am using CapCut, which is part of TikTok, but it's its own app, and I am doing the entire Spirit Airlines kind of update. When the airline was shutting down, I just went on CapCut, I screenshotted a bunch of the airlines and what they're saying, we're gonna help lower fares, we're doing all this, and then you've got the federal government giving a statement, and I'm like, I'm just gonna tell people what's going on because I think this is gonna have a huge impact in the consumer world in airline prices. So I'm a subject matter specialist in consumer things, and so let me hop on. And you can see I added the captions there. It'll auto do that. You can choose the type of graphics you want, and then green screen. CapCut, you might have to pay for to get a couple green screens and captions and things like that, but you can do all of this with Premiere. You can do it with Instagram Edits, which is new in the last year, and produce something right on your phone wherever you are.
And you've got captions throughout all these videos. You've got titles. Why are those absolute ingredients for a vertical video?
We talked about being able to watch these videos without hearing anything, right? You're at work, you're on the train, you're on the bus, you're wherever, you're in this room. Yeah, you can still watch the video knowing what the story is about because you have the captions right underneath. You have the title off of the top that says, here's what this story is about. Pay attention, And some people are able to get away with not necessarily having a title, or you may not need the captions because you have really compelling video on screen. Well, that compelling video is going to draw people in regardless. What if it's just you on camera? Well, then you need something to sell people the idea of sticking around. And so what do? You add the title, you add the captions, you add the compelling video. That's the full picture.
And then beyond that, you're using hashtags and other things to get
Yes.
engagement. Talk about that.
So collab, I've heard people pronounce that differently, collab, and I'm like, no, you're collabing, like it's a new word.
I was afraid to
Collaborating.
pronounce it.
Collabor, it's
Yes.
a new thing. Okay, so hashtags is how people are gonna find your SEO, your search kind of, hashtag. Honestly, you'll see a lot of my hashtags say FYP because that's what the kids are doing. It's called For Your Page, and I don't know why,
It
but
doesn't work.
it works for me.
It-
It's for their page, and so I hashtag it because that's what the kids are doing. And collabing, I do a lot of that with my station because this is our story. I collab with them. They get my content. I get their views, and we're working together. So that's a huge way to monetize and monetize, not monetize as in money, but monetize on your audience.
And I know as someone who's been in local TV for more than 30 years, doing these videos, it's a little bit of an adjustment, right? You want to be authentic. People don't want that robotic anchor voice in these videos. They want you to be natural. So how do you go about doing that?
Well, as far as just, it is the mindset shift, right? Instead of thinking about the officials that are going to be watching the stories or the other reporters who are going to nitpick the story or whatever, you're talking to your friend. And often what I find is that people, they appreciate the authenticity almost more than they appreciate what the story is about. If that makes sense. Like, people appreciate knowing that they can talk to you like a human being, even though they know that you're Joe Schmo on TV. They like having that person who's informed on whatever subjects are going on in their neighborhoods. And so, yeah, you can become a trusted news voice on a story you never put on TV. Just because you find it interesting. You think other people would find it interesting. You know your audience. These are people who go to you and say, you're my guy, okay? You're my news guy. I hear that all the time. You're my news guy. May not even know my name. You're my news guy, okay? And what's funny is that people are now curating their news people. They are taking you, they may not follow your stations, but they like you. And so give them more reasons to see your stuff where they are. And the last part I put in there, and Ted Oberg mentioned this yesterday during his panel, but guys, people are doing this anyway, whether you want to do it or not. They're taking your stuff. One of the funniest moments that I've had is when I was watching a video and I realized that the person who was on the other end was saying something that sounded very familiar, and I thought, well, wait a minute. And then they said, yeah, from this article from News Channel 5, and they started reading my article. This is an influencer. We influence as well. I know that sounds weird, but we influence as well. These are people who are going to create content based off of your content. So why are we not in these spaces? That's the question.
So I actually want to shout out AJ Legault, because what he was just talking about is there's a reporter that actually, reporter quote unquote, somebody that got a lot of views and a lot of attention using his video. If you know what I'm talking about, if you don't, go look up AJ Legault's social media. There's a plug for you. And so you're always a journalist. You know, when you're out, you can create a snapshot into any investigation. For example, I went to the airport during the government shutdown, and I thought, how long is it going to take me to get through TSA? So I started shooting vertical video, and I sped up, and I counted how long it took me to get through the TSA line. And then I started talking to people who may have been in other lines, such as the main baggage line, or in regulars, what it would be called, I guess. And I said, well, this is how long it's taking. That video got 200,000 views within a couple days, because that's the news people wanted to consume. And if you went to our website, you would see that we are looking into this government shutdown and the impacts on TSA and funding in the community and all sorts of things. But something that simple is a snapshot in time can create a much bigger impact on your social media. You want to be real, you want to be trustworthy. This is your brand, but it's also journalism, right? We got to protect that. And as I mentioned, subject matter specialists, you could see the second video there, I'm reporting on California going after State Farm, right? And I'm not in California right now, I'm in Atlanta, but I know insurance, and I know that State Farm is the biggest insurer in the country for property insurance. And so California saying, hey, you let people down in these massive wildfires, is something that I know a lot about, and I want to explain to people what this means, what the impacts are. So I did a social media reel the same way that I did the last one with the screenshots on Spirit. Social video cannot be just one reporter that's excited about being on social media. For me, I know my audience, being a millennial, my friends are not watching the news. They're just not at home at 5 o'clock. I don't get home till about 7:30 in the evening, and so when I get home, the news is usually over. People are consuming my stories on social, and so you've got to be not just on social, but your photogs got to help you out. Your managers can help you out. You see in the top right there, my station does a thing called Social Gold. If you kind of win the week of social views on their Instagram or TikTok, YouTube, you get this little gold bar. And it's just an incentive to tell people, like, we see you. We see the extra work you're doing outside of just your story. There's many ways that news directors or producers can give their team, their reporters, time to do this. Maybe it's an hour on a Friday. Maybe, you say you would dedicate half this day to planning out some social media. But if we do this together, we can make it happen.
All right, so I'm going to do a little show and tell, and I figure since I talk about this with our research, I have to be in the game, right? I'm not perfect. I've been doing vertical videos, I would say, for the past few years, but this is more for the people out there that are more experienced, seasoned as opposed to old, I prefer to say, and why you need to get in the game, even if you're a little hesitant about it. This is a story that we did last week, multi-part investigation that was probably over 10 minutes between the parts. The vertical video is about a minute or so let's just take a look. This police officer got caught paying for a massage and sex, but he was never charged with a crime. He resigned before getting fired, and now he's a sergeant in another town. See, cops in Massachusetts can resign or retire to avoid discipline, and plenty of them are doing it, finding new law enforcement jobs in other communities or on college campuses. This police officer was allegedly drunk on the job and was found patrolling in his personal vehicle. Listen to what sounds like him slurring on the radio.
I can take that call. It's an EMS up.
Good for
56 call EMS up.
He resigned and was hired by a university police force. The officers either didn't get back to us or declined to comment. Why do officers resign to avoid discipline?
Maybe they don't want to put themselves through what it takes to go through the disciplinary process and want to exit the system, or maybe they really want to dodge discipline and avoid accountability.
We found more than 50 cases where officers resigned or retired to avoid discipline and are now working for another law enforcement agency. Check out the link in our caption to see if any of them are working where you live. So to me, the big takeaway from this is the numbers. So the 6 o'clock news, #1 newscast in Boston, that investigation aired, and we had 165,000 people watching the TV. 444,000 views on the vertical video. So if you're not doing vertical video, you are not reaching the potential audience that you could be. And I think that's just a thing to think about when you're thinking about whether you're going to do this type of work. All right, we're going to talk what everyone always wants to talk about, which is monetization. And even if the money's not rolling in, you got to get in the game, because it is something that people are still figuring out. But Levi is making some money off doing this, and I think it's particularly interesting that your bosses know it and they're okay with it, and we want to hear a little bit about it.
They're not here, are they? Maybe sure. No, absolutely. And this is part of the reason why I want to make sure that we talk about this kind of stuff, is to make it less taboo. This is the industry's worst kept secret. And I put that up there for a reason, folks. Some of the same folks who will go, oh my God, are you kidding? He's doing that, are some of the same folks who are already monetizing their content. It's happening in your newsrooms every single day. You may not hear it, but you know what? The bottom line is, it's still happening. Okay? We are trying to find different ways of incentivizing people into creating more of this content. So how do we do that without making the incentive you don't lose your job? Right? And so this was one incentive that was presented to me by TikTok. And they said, yeah, if you're going to make more of these videos, why don't we just pay you to make more videos? And I thought, well, let me just run it by some folks first. Because this is kind of strange, guys. I don't want there to be any issues here, between my folks, your folks. It'll get messy. And the more I talked to my folks, I said, listen, we are at the point now where we are negotiating a contract. It gets messy sometimes, right? Everyone here knows. That's why you get agents, so they can handle that stuff. I just asked, well, what if paying me more became somebody else's problem? And the light bulb went off. And they said, well, you've been doing this for what? Now it's been 5 years, and we haven't given you any reason to take down a video or whatever. We've given you a lot of flexibility, and you haven't let us down yet. Okay, let's try it. Let's try it. So is it a gamble? Yes, because not everyone's going to get the same type of situation. I am in a very fortunate situation where my folks understand the value of what I've created. They see it every day. People come up to them and they say, that Levi guy who's doing that stuff on the Tickety Talk or whatever, yeah, I like what he's doing. My daughter watches that. My son watches that. They love what News Channel 5's doing that. That's pretty cool. Those are the conversations that they're having without me ever being in the room, just because I asked the question. If you take anything else away other than the camera thing from this conversation and what these folks have said, it's that sometimes you just got to ask. I don't know how many people have actually asked. Has anyone here, other than me, asked about getting paid for their content? That's one hand, folks.
3.
3 hands. This is a packed room. There's 3 hands. We can ask. And if the answer is no, well, I think some news managers, I see them in the room, okay? I want you to better understand why we're doing this in the first place. This was not about me making money. This was about me showing what's possible. And if we're interested in how we're going to keep our industry alive, we need to find other ways of getting people interested in doing this work.
Absolutely. I think it's also important to point out, because I've talked to TV stations across the country, and one of them that is monetizing and doing well, I said, what's your advice? Like, all TV stations want to make money on this, and they were like, turn on the monetization, because there's a lot of stations that aren't even doing that. So obviously it's important for TV stations to make money as well, and it's a work in progress. I think we're figuring that out, but those digital sales, and it's going up. The money is coming in more than it has been.
A work in progress is a great way to describe the intersection between the company and individual social media right now. A lot of companies that we may work for don't allow you to monetize on your social media. And that's something that you just need to have, as he mentioned, the conversation up front when you're signing the contract, what's in your company handbook, what's allowed, and what matters to you. So that's a conversation you have up front. I know that a lot of handbooks will say that any monetization needs to come from your general manager's approval. So just make sure you know the policies, ask the questions, and know that as a newsroom, they're also trying to figure this out as well. Survival is one of the words used in our industry right now, and so monetization for our stations is also helping bring in, YouTube revenues are bringing in maybe one person's salary, so it's not going to support the whole newsroom. So we really have to figure out how to bring in all platforms as well as commercials and digital advertisements and all sorts of different ways of revenue, but social media is one of them. In addition, I've heard people here say that they're making companies saying that they're making $15,000 to $30,000 a month on Facebook right now. We thought Facebook was dying. It is not. That is a couple months' salary for some people in this industry. And so really just have the conversation. News directors, photographers, reporters, everyone can get in on this and reach your audience where they are.
And I'll just leave you with this really quick, just to dovetail off of that. Platforms like TikTok are begging for us. I have conversations with them on a pretty standard basis at this point. They are begging for journalists. And the reason they're begging for them is because they know the audience wants to be informed. And it sounds weird because you see all these cat videos and you see the dancing, whoever, whatever it might be. Guys, they know their audience, and the audience is saying, I will sit through a 4-minute long investigative piece if it's done well. And so, you know what TikTok says? Levi, can you do that? Is that a thing? Like, you're a journalist, right? And I said, yes, I do that every day. And I've been doing these for the last 5 years. So they're asking for, how can we get you involved? Not you wondering, how am I going to get their attention for more views, more follows, or whatever. They're willing to help, and they're willing to pay. The pay part, yes, that is a point of conversation. But if they can help you get your videos in front of more people, that's the hard work, okay? That's what's going to keep us around.
Absolutely. All right, we want to take questions, so if anyone has questions, please line up. And again, we've got this QR code. It will take you to our contact information, but also that survival guide for local TV news you'll find on our research website, which has tons of useful information. But let's get to questions.
Great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Len Bestoff, NBC Connecticut. 2 questions, if I may. I'll make them quick. How many platforms are you on? And also, getting sound and video into your phone to do Instagram edits. Everybody's got their techniques. I'd love to hear yours.
Sure. I think I'm on 8 platforms at this point. And that was me having to actually trim it down because it was getting a little ridiculous. There's an app every single second. But I'm about at 8 at this point. And as far as getting the video onto my phone, Stassi, you could probably attest to this as well. I speak to my photographers. I'm like, story just aired, okay, can you send me a copy? All right, so they will, we have a great working relationship where the photographers are sending me the content that I will use for my vertical videos, and they understand, I'm doing this to make us both look good and to make sure that the content lives elsewhere. So they don't have to worry about it. My digital team doesn't have to worry about it. It's us.
I would start with one platform. If you're starting out, choose one. Instagram, TikTok, whatever it might be. I love Instagram. That's where I keep up with people in my life, my personal life. And so Instagram would be my favorite. I also do TikTok and Facebook. As I mentioned, that's where, a lot of people are still consuming their news. YouTube Shorts is huge right now. So just pick one. Don't worry about that. In terms of getting video on your phone, I have a mic that I invested in myself, and I always keep it on me and just plug it right in and capture content that way. Or I actually Teams myself. So I will actually upload my package into WeTransfer. I will ask it for a link, and I will Teams myself the WeTransfer link. I have the WeTransfer app on my phone. I will download that to my phone. I'm sure there's an easier way, but I work on a PC, and then I have an iPhone, so I've got to figure out how to make them talk to each other. That's how I do it.
AirDrop. super easy.
Yeah, if you have a Mac.
Yeah,
Yep.
true. Okay, so I have a question about SEO. We talk about hashtags, but I'm watching all of these content creators and the experts on TikTok, and they're like, okay, hashtags are dead. You've got to use SEO and embed it into your video, but you take it off the screen. What is your best suggestion to get your video seen by more people?
I don't think the hashtags are dead. I think that hashtags do help, but I do think that the SEO is pretty important as well. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you can make something that feels evergreen, people are going to find your video whenever. I mean, I posted one video about the, I guess it would have been the No Kings rally, right, in Nashville at the time. And it's still getting all of these different views every single time there's a No Kings rally, because people are searching it and it's going, oh, well, yeah, check out this video. So, in I guess my tactic would be, you can double up with the hashtags, but also, just make sure that the videos can live on beyond just the moment.
Hi, I'm Sarah at CBS in Denver. I have two quick questions. My first one is, how long did those videos take you to make? Because that's my biggest concern on a deadline, is sometimes I'll be like, ooh, I want to do a social, but it'll take too long, and then it's 10 p.m.
Do you want to take that one?
You said deadline, so you're trying to
Yeah.
get your social up before you post actually or publish?
So
or air?
our team was also doing it for teases at one point, but they want it on the same day as we air. Is your advice like, do it as its own thing, maybe when you have time later in the week?
It's going to depend. So if you get a week to work on a story, factor into your editing time that social media video. For me, I MMJ a lot of my own stuff. I'm posting my social media videos the next day, and then I'm selling people to what was published. So have that conversation with your producer on what's plausible for you. Teasing with social media also isn't getting as many clicks anymore. So the whole tune in tonight at 5 is not really a thing anymore. So maybe you look at what's doing well and you take that to your bosses and say, look, this isn't getting numbers, but if I post the next day and you give me an hour to really work on this, honestly, if you have your photographer or you're an MMJ and you have it already laid out, it's easier to edit and maybe send to your phone, how I mentioned, and you could do like that Clayton County animal video I probably did in 2 hours.
And second quick question, I saw your TSA video, which I think is great and really relatable, but I worry because technically we're not supposed to film TSA, that someone could get mad at our station or doing something, if we use a photo from the internet, like content and speed versus what as a journalist you're supposed to be filming.
For sure, for sure. I did the line. And I tried to be super respectful of I'm not even gonna lie, in that video, there was somebody who was supposed to be working on the tarmac who was putting our stuff through the machine, and I was thinking, is that legal? That's where my head was. But there's definitely legal first, don't break any rules. That was just the line, and then some information. You're allowed to film TSA from the back.
Was just as an example of a question.
Yeah, but no, that's definitely what crossed my mind. I was like, I don't know, and yeah.
I really don't think there should be deadlines. I don't. Because the people who are watching are not basing it off of the fact that it happened today, and so I need to see it today. There are people who are going to watch your video 3 months from now, and they still need to know that it's relevant to them. So sometimes it might take me a day. Sometimes it might take me 3 days, but I will put the video up, and it will still feel evergreen, so the content still makes sense.
And it's a mindset shift, like you said. They're not watching TV. They're not watching your newscast.
Kyle Whitmire, AL.com. I'm curious how much, you talked about hooks, but what sort of other editing for the algorithm you do? I know a lot of content creators, a lot of influencers try to avoid the sort of trip words that might get you throttled on some of these platforms. Murdered, killed, and they use these awful euphemisms like unalived. How much consideration do you give that? I'm just curious what your thought process is.
I love this question. Folks, we are journalists. You can say murder. You can say kill. You can say death. You can say all of these different things. Don't dance around it. I got in trouble the one time because I put a little asterisk in the word death in the title because I wanted to make sure the algorithms weren't going to trip up on it. And guess what? I got flack for doing that. People said, you're a journalist, aren't you? Just say death. Like, what are we doing? Are we influencers or whatever? Like, okay, that's on me. Just say the words. I know the algorithms, they are sometimes a little tricky with all of that, and that's a problem for the influencers that are trying to get their videos, as many views and all that kind of stuff out there. At the end of the day, you'd much rather not look like an idiot, right? Trying to talk through your story, because that's not how you would explain it to your friend. You wouldn't say this guy was unalived or he was shot with a pew-pew. You know, like, that doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't say that in a conversation. So just keep it conversational. I promise you, the platforms are adjusting to all of that, and so you can say words that might be a little off-putting for an algorithm, because it's getting past the algorithm to the human being who is saying, no, that's a journalist. They know what they're doing.
Yeah, Tully Taylor, how do you talk to news managers who might be reticent? You know, the dynamic has shifted from, as you talked about, Levi, you know, the station being what's known, the anchor being what's known, to the reporter being, you know, the influencer and the face of the stories. If they're reticent to let you collab with the station account, things like that, how do you talk to them to convince them to let that happen?
Well, I mean, they should be letting you collaborate with the station accounts. I mean, that should be a no-brainer. The stations, I think the stations realize, or they should realize, that early on, if you're starting this thing, you may not have any followers to begin with, right? You're starting completely brand new. And so they may have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram. You can use them as a crutch to get as many eyeballs as possible. That's where the collaborations come into play. And, you know, talking to them about that, I mean, yeah, there are going to be videos that make no sense to live on the station page. You know, you're doing a food review. I do food reviews. I love them, okay? It has nothing to do with the station. But the ones where I'm talking about the police officer who was writing phony commission cards, well then, yeah, I want that to be a collaboration with you. And so it's the understanding of why. There's so much of this that goes back to the why. Why are we doing this? Because we need eyeballs on our content. And so if they're hesitant about your content living on their socials, I mean, I would ask them, are they hesitant about it living on their TV station? You know,
right.
It's the same deal.
It tends to be more to do with it being off the cuff, you know, not perfectly scripted,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, I would have that conversation is, you know, what type of stuff do you want on your social media? Can I help you build your social media? What should I post? Have that conversation with your producers, your managers. And then if you're doing something like, for example, my California insurance story, I didn't collab with my station because we're Atlanta News First. And I did a more national kind of, here's my experience. I'm from California. I know these fires. I know State Farm. But for me, it was my choice not to collab with them because I thought maybe it wasn't good for their audience. But you can make those decisions on your own and then also have those conversations. You could do it.
Yeah, treat yourself as the news director in this case.
Hi, Hong Tao, student journalist at Rice University. I have a question about how you determine what gets actually put onto, let's say, YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. How do you differentiate between, let's say, different applications? Do you find different demographic preferences?
That's a great question. Can I take that one?
Sure,
Or you-
go
okay.
on.
I love using TikTok, for example, for long form content because no one really bats an eye for a video living or a video that's 3, 4, 5 minutes long or whatever. With Instagram, they will cut you off at 3 minutes and they will say, okay, well, if you're going to do 3 minutes, it can't be a reel. Or if you're going to do more than 3 minutes, it can't be a reel because their algorithm is a little different. But, you know, for me, I enjoy being able to put something that's more just thinking out loud. Like I am processing what I just reported. I'll put that on TikTok. Whereas with Instagram, people are looking for what's the compelling video? What's the compelling sound? What is something that's more tailored to right now? Like what happened today, this week, or whatever? People are looking for something that's more timely through Instagram, and I guess YouTube and TikTok are much more evergreen.
Facebook.
So, you know, you'll notice on TikTok, for example, you don't see a little part there that shows the date. right? Like if you do, it's very, very fine print of when this was published, because it doesn't really matter. People are flipping through to watch good content, whereas Instagram, they're usually expecting this happened sometime around the past week or so.
And quick follow-up, have there been articles that you've worked on that you feel might be better on broadcast or maybe as a online article that shouldn't be on, let's say, these short-form videos?
I definitely have. Yeah, sometimes there's just not good video for it. Sometimes I think, to be honest, I think that my social media audience isn't going to engage with this. This is more of, a local news TV story. You just got to make those editorial decisions, know your audience, know where they are and what they want. Yeah.
I can't think of the time.
Hi, my name is Liliana Pearson. I'm a reporter in Houston, and I'm typically a general assignment day-turn reporter. My station doesn't have any requirements for vertical video, so this is something that I'm trying to do on my own, and I'm trying to get it done in the 20 minutes of time that I have between shows to hurry up and do it. So my question is, on certain platforms, that one video that I have time to shoot and edit does really well, and on other platforms, it gets nothing. Specifically Meta, I feel like I get a lot of stuff there. TikTok, I'm not getting anything at all. So what are some quick, easy things that you feel like you can do differently when posting the same exact video to try to maximize views? I don't know if this is a hashtag difference, a captioning difference.
I think if you are shooting a video that is, let's say if you're shooting something that's long form, right? If you're sitting in front of the camera and you're doing 5 minutes, if you will, you said 20 seconds, I'm gonna give you 5. If you're doing 5 minutes, I would say you're more likely to get better traction on TikTok, where you're just kind of talking through something, as opposed to, if you were gonna do on Facebook, it needs to feel like snappy sometimes. It needs to feel like, okay, well, let's get to what you're gonna be talking about. Sure, we've talked about the 3 to 5 seconds, but I feel like with TikTok compared to some of the other platforms, they give you a little more flexibility for that time because they know that people are willing to sit through longer videos. So I would say if you're going to create something, it wouldn't be too much trouble to just say, okay, well, that part where I'm kind of processing what I'm saying, we can get rid of that for Facebook or an Instagram. But then with TikTok, you could say, okay, well, it feels natural. Let me just talk through it. Does that make sense?
I'd say also with GA, you can maximize the content you're putting out in a day. So we heard yesterday a top ABC local news reporter, he's putting out 3 social media videos a day, and all he's doing is talking to them while he's on his way to the breaking news desk. That's what people want. Take them throughout your day, especially if it's GA. You have that opportunity to lead them through your day with you. Be raw, be real. I'm headed to the scene. This is what we know. I'm going to ask these questions. Update. We're going to be on at 5 on this channel. I'll post the story later. Do you guys have any questions that you might want, answered in this story? And then post the full thing to your story that's still engaging your audience. People honestly are looking a lot more at stories than they are scrolling because they can easily just tap. I mean, it's kind of crazy right now the way our brains are working. So if you just want to post your story at the end of the day, literally your story to your Instagram story. If you need more detail, we can explain that later. But just put it out there, and you're going to get the traction, I promise you.
And we're running out of time, so we have time for one more question, but we'll stick around afterward if people want to follow up with anything else.
Thanks for taking the time for the last one. So some of our videos get more than 100,000 views. Others barely crack 1,000. So I have a 2-part question. Is the best practice to just keep going, keep churning content just in case some of them do well? But the second part of that question is can we talk about the mental health aspect of how do you pick yourself back up and tell yourself to keep creating these videos in case they do get views when you're finding that some of them aren't?
I think this definitely goes back to the idea of, are you creating content that you enjoy? Or are you being forced to create the content, and so therefore it shows and it's weighing on you? Make sure that you, at the end of the day, you are creating something that you're going to be passionate about, that you're going to be proud of, And that's how I fight the burnout, is yeah, there are going to be videos that I work hours on, days on, that don't do well. But then there are going to be videos that I shot right outside my place, just sitting down in front of my porch, and next thing you know, it gets hundreds of thousands of views. And that can be a little demoralizing, but at the same time, I'm proud of both of those videos.
I post a lot of my dog too. I have 2 pit bulls, rescue pups, and so I literally, like, they make me happy. I love to share them on my social stories. So it's mine, and if you want to be part of my journey and as a journalist and you want to be informed, follow my page. If not, see ya.
Really
Thanks,
quick.
everyone. We really appreciate it, and good luck producing your vertical videos.
Really quick, guys, just so you know, this presentation, we will add all of the audio to those videos that you didn't hear audio to, so you can actually sit and watch them as examples, okay? Cool. Thank you.
Questions? Come on.